After I buried my only boy, the house went quiet in a way that didn't feel like silence. It felt like a weight, like somebody had stacked bricks on my chest and told me to breathe anyway. My name's Ruth Carter. I'm 65, and I've lived in Riverbend, Ohio, my whole life. Same squeaky porch, same pear tree, out back, same kitchen table, where I taught my son Michael to count change with pennies and nickels. I thought grief would be the hardest thing I'd ever carry. I was wrong. It turns out some people mistake your tears for weakness, and when they do, they'll try to move furniture around in a home they didn't build. The day after the funeral, I stood in the hallway with my hand on the doorframe, just breathing, trying to hold myself together. Jenna, my daughter-in-law, glided past me with her phone glued to her ear, eyes like frosted glass. We weren't enemies, not exactly, but we weren't family either. "Jenna," I said quiet, the way you talk to a spooked horse. "Maybe tonight we can sit down, share a meal, talk about Michael." She didn't slow, didn't lift her eyes. "Ruth, I'm not your grief babysitter," she said, and the words went into me like a nail. I opened my mouth closed. It looked down at my hands. They were still. That scared me more than if they'd been shaking. Nights were the loudest. Can you believe that the house would settle? The heater would sigh, and then through thin walls, I'd hear her laugh, easy and bright, like nothing had been broken. I told myself people hurt in different ways. Maybe hers just didn't look like mine. But then, little things started to pile up. No plate saved for me in the fridge. The master bedroom door I'd never touched suddenly locked her, introducing herself as the owner to the neighbor across the fence, while I stood there holding a bag of fertilizer like a farmhand. You sign your name on enough invisible lines you forget which ones matter, until somebody rubs the page with charcoal, and the old letters show. One morning I set coffee in front of her, tried again. He would have wanted us to take care of each other, I said. She set the mug down harder than you'd think a mug could land. Don't tell me what Michael would have wanted. This is my life now, she said, and her smile had that sharp, pretty edge people pay dentists for. Not yours. What do you say to that when your throat feels like it's filled with drywall dust? You nod, you wipe the counter, you go outside and cut dead blossoms off the rosebush your son planted, the one that still leans toward the light like it remembers his hands. The moment came a week later, fast, clean, like a trap snapping shut. She pushed my bedroom door open without knocking, arms folded, phone face down on the screen so the light wouldn't give her away. "Ruth," she said, "it's time you move out. I'm having my parents come stay. They'll help me manage the place." She said the place like it was a spreadsheet. "My home," I said, not loud, not pleading, just honest. She laughed, a small, bright thing. "Michael's home. Now mine." I looked at her, truly looked, and I saw a young woman convinced she'd traded the grief she didn't want for the power she did. I thought about yelling. Instead, I reached for the suitcase under my bed. I folded Michael's old college sweatshirt, the one with the grease stain from the night we made smash burgers because the power went out and the grill was all we had. I tucked 2 sweaters, a pair of slacks, 3 blouses with sleeves that didn't pinch. She watched me wheel my bag down the hallway like she was supervising a delivery. At the front door, a minivan pulled up, her parents Everett and Pauline, all smiles and casserole carriers, stepping over the threshold like tourists in a museum. "Afternoon," Everett said, nodding at me as if I were the maid he'd tip later. I nodded back. "When you've got nothing left except your dignity, you keep it polished." I rented a room at the roadside inn off Route 6, the kind of place that smells like lemon cleaner and old air conditioners. I sat on the bed with the floral bedspread and laid Michael's sweatshirt across my lap. "Baby, I'm going to stand up now," I said, "and if that sounds dramatic, you haven't ever had to talk yourself into being a person again." I made one phone call to a man named Langley, who's been doing our family's paperwork since before I learned to drive. I told him what happened. He didn't clear his throat, didn't tell me to calm down. He just said, "Mrs. Carter, we're going to handle this cleanly. Here's a thing we don't say enough: you can grieve and still know your rights." See, years back, before Jenna showed up with lips the color of wine and eyes that made my boy think he could change heaven's mind. Michael asked me to put the house in both our names. I didn't. Not because I didn't love him, because I loved him enough to keep a roof over both our heads. Titles are not about love. They're about weathering storms. The deed said Ruth Elaine Carter. It had always said that. It was filed in the county building where the clerk knows me by my church hat. The next morning, while a thin slice of winter sun crept across the motel carpet, Langley called. "It's done," he said, calm as a bus driver. "Notice served." I pictured it like a scene from a movie. Jenna padding to the door in her robe, flipping through mail, that official stamp catching the light. She'd tear the envelope, skim the words, and then read them again slower, because panic makes you understand grammar. 30 days. Vacate. Property owner, Ruth Elaine Carter. No drama, just ink. Around noon, my phone started buzzing. I flipped it over Jenna. I let it ring out once, twice. 10 calls, 15, 23. The motel air conditioner rattled like a loose tooth. I sat by the window and watched a crow hop along the curb, smart and nosy and unbothered by the world. 30 calls, 38, 50. I let them all go. Silence can be the heaviest sentence you ever hand down. When the voicemails came, I listened with the phone face down, like maybe her voice could crawl out the speaker and look me in the eye. Ruth. I didn't know. I thought it was Michael's. "I'm sorry about what I said. Please call me, please." And her breath hitched, and somewhere behind her, I heard a drawer slam and a man say, "This is ridiculous, Jenna." And a woman say, "Where are we supposed to go?" I pressed the phone to my chest and closed my eyes. You can feel sorry for a person and still remember how they set a match to your life. You know, pity isn't permission to forget. 2 days later, I drove back to the house with one suitcase and my church hat. I used the spare key. I had never stopped having it. I had only stopped using it. The door groaned the way it always had, like it got older with me. The living room was quiet, and the quiet this time didn't feel like someone was punishing me. It felt like a deep inhale. Sunlight made squares on the rug where Michael used to sprawl with his math homework. I set my bag down. "I'm home," I said, because sometimes you need to hear yourself say it. You want vengeance. I can't help you. I don't know that song. What I know is boundary. I called Langley. We double-checked the locks. We took photos for the record, like the world is always asking to see proof you lived. I made a pot of tea that tasted like resilience, and a little soap because I hadn't rinsed the kettle enough. I laughed and the sound startled me. I hadn't heard it in so long I almost didn't recognize it. That week I hired help, not to replace family, that's not how it works, but to make the house less hollow. Evelyn came on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. She's 52, has a smile like a porch light, and chops onions like she's drumming. "You like stew?" she asked on her first day. "I like anything I don't have to argue with," I said, and she laughed so hard we had to sit down. I found a younger woman, Lila, to keep the place tidy, the kind of tidy that doesn't scrub away memory. She hummed while she worked older R&B tunes, windows propped open so the house could breathe. In the afternoons, I sat by the kitchen window and watched the wind move through the pear tree, watched two squirrels chase each other like they'd been told the world was ending and decided to play anyway. Maybe you're wondering if I called Jenna back. I didn't, not right away. She sent texts, paragraphs, apologies, more paragraphs. "I was hurting," she wrote. "I didn't know how to carry it." And maybe that was true. But here's another truth. You can be hurting and still be unkind, and both facts can stand in the same room without yelling at each other. One evening, Evelyn ladled stew into bowls and said, "You're stronger than you give yourself credit for." I stared at the steam. I'm tired of being strong. I'd like to be soft without being stepped on. "Then be soft with a fence," she said, matter of fact. That's all a boundary is. Sometimes the best lines in your life come from a woman who charges by the hour and brings her own apron. A week passed. The roses out back looked like they were thinking about trying again. I took Michael's sweatshirt from the closet, folded it, tucked it on the top shelf where I could reach it if the house ever felt too big. Grief didn't go anywhere. It just stopped biting and started sitting on the couch watching TV with me feet up, less demanding. When I did finally speak to Jenna, it was on the porch at dusk. Cicadas tuning up air soft in that way Ohio gets right before it remembers humidity. She stood at the bottom of the steps, hands twisted together. She looked smaller without the armor of certainty. "I'm sorry," she said, and I believe she was. I thought, her voice cracked.